Hey, work from homers, Adam Schroeder here. We love bringing you this podcast, and thousands of you have proven that it's been helpful for you. But since time and online storage space aren't free, Naresh and I wanted to come to you personally to ask for your financial support through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/workfromhomeshow and help support the show. And we appreciate your support at any amount you choose. That's patreon.com/workfromhomeshow. Thanks for your support. Let's get to the show.
Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. I'm Naresh with Adam. Today we have Dr. Nadya Zhexembayeva. She is called the Reinvention Guru, according to InVentures magazine, and also called the Queen of Reinvention. So she just knows everything reinvention related. TEDx Navasink dubbed her that title. She is a business owner, educator, speaker, and author, of course, once again, specializing in reinvention. It has been a turbulent, up and down, uncertain time over the past couple of years, and many people have had to reinvent themselves, their jobs, their businesses, their families, their children, their households, their marriages. So much reinvention going on. As a business owner, Nadya oversees a group of companies active in real estate, investing, and consulting. She has helped organizations such as Coca-Cola, IBM, CISCO, and many, many more to help, of course, reinvent their products, processes, and leadership practices. She is the founder of Reinvention Academy and the author of the new book, The Chief Reinvention Officer Handbook, How to Thrive in Chaos. Dr. Nadya, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be with you.
Well, let's start with reinvention and apply it to the post-pandemic world that we now live in. What are your top tips for effective personal reinvention, not just for anybody who has had a hardship or a death or a setback, but for anybody in this climate that we currently live in?
Well, my number one tip, and it applies to both personal and professional domain or business reinvention or personal reinvention, is to recognize that we live in the times of reinvention. Looking back at 2020, 2021, many researchers are comparing it to those monumental shifts that we faced in the last 100 years. So in the 1920s, it was the Great Recession. And then 2008, 2011, again, a recession. Now they call it the era of great reinvention. So it's a different kind of time where it's no longer acceptable to reinvent once in a lifetime or once every 20, 30 years. That now reinvention is becoming like taking a shower. If you don't take a shower on a regular basis, you begin to stink. Same with reinvention. If you don't reinvent on a regular basis, proactively, your personal experience, your career, and your business begin to stink. So that's the number one tip. Stop looking at reinvention as a one-time event or project and start building it into your daily habits and to your normal life.
Now, when you talk about reinvention, how big of a change do you need to make whenever you're reinventing? Like, can it just be small tweaks, or how big should you be looking at going?
That's a great question. So we, because we research a lot of companies and individuals who are successful to who are successful in surviving the storms, the crises and disruptions, and successful at turning disruption into opportunity. This is what we see in our research. The only way to go forward is to look at reinvention as a portfolio. So instead of choosing, do I do a small tweak or do I go disruptive and big? You think of a portfolio of experiments. Some of them are quite small, and some of them can be somewhere in the medium category, and some of them are very, very complex. And all of them should be part of your portfolio. At different times, you can start with small things, occasionally introduce a drastic, radical, disruptive reinvention, and then go back to somewhere else. We have a very small, simple canvas, nine types of reinvention canvas, 3x3, with 3 types of scope and 3 types of intensity. So on the scope, you can go in reinventing only part of your life. We call it a subsystem reinvention. You can reinvent your entire life. That would be a system reinvention. And you can reinvent not only your life, but everything around you. That would be an ecosystem reinvention. And then on the intensity, we go from very incremental to intermediate to disruptive. So 9 types of reinvention. Think of it as a portfolio and play with it a little bit so that you know that at some times in your life you want to go deep and big, and sometimes you just want a small improvement.
Can you give us specific either practices or examples of these reinvention tips? So let's say, for example, we have a bunch of listeners right now and they lost their job. They don't have a job. They're on unemployment. They got their stimulus checks, and mentally they're just thinking, the job market's tough. Restaurants, 30% of restaurants in the United States have shut down. Many other businesses have shut down. I'm hopeless. What would be your step-by-step guide to reinventing those individuals?
So I will suggest 3 first steps, because there's many more, but I think if you do this 3, you will be far ahead many other people. And since we practiced in the last year, Reinvention Academy served over 3,000 people in very intense distress. I can also say that this makes a difference for the participants based on the experience. So step number 1, you cannot come up with any good idea and mobilize yourself unless you first take care of your emotions. And I don't mean it in a kind of kumbaya, hold your hands, kind of groovy sense. I mean it from the point of view of science and biology. So when you are in fear, in anxiety, in stress, you need to understand what your body is doing at that moment. You are in stress, you're afraid how you're going to pay your bills or how you're going to feed your kids. In that moment, your body is releasing a set of hormones, first and foremost, adrenaline. And those hormones are distributing resources in your body in a way that it prepares your body to take an attack of an invisible threat. And for thousands of years, those threats were physical. So your body is preparing for a physical attack. It's called fight or flight syndrome, and you heard of it in your biology class in your high school. So what your body does, it distributes blood differently. It takes away blood from your brain by squeezing the capillaries and pulls that brain into your muscle, that blood into your muscles. That's number 1. It does something called auditory exclusion. It makes you unable to hear anything that is not directly related to your survival. It also changes what your eyes notice so that you only concentrate on things relevant to your physical survival. So here you are trying to brainstorm ideas on how you can find a new job or where you can get a small temporary side hustle to pay the bills. And your brain doesn't have oxygen, it doesn't have blood supply. Your eyes cannot see and your ears cannot hear. So unless you deal with the biology, you cannot move on. So we have a very simple exercise. Pull out a piece of paper right now. List your biggest fears and the potential consequences of those fears come into reality. Then sort those fears into 1 of 3 buckets. Bucket number 1, things you can control. Bucket number 2, things you cannot control. And bucket number 3, things you can influence, not fully control, but influence. And once you start sorting, you immediately start concentrating on things you can directly control or influence and put aside things you cannot control. That allows your body to exit this physical state of fear and mobilize. So step number 1, take care of your biology. Otherwise, you cannot think creatively, you cannot have new ideas, you cannot hear opportunities, you cannot notice opportunities. Step number 2, think about low-hanging fruit, simple tangible, small steps you can turn into small wins. Things like holding a garage sale or taking your clothes that you're not using and selling it at a thrifting shop, because right now it's a very popular thing for youngsters to go thrifting, and there's more and more places accepting clothes. Things like turning your time into a freelance opportunity, small tangible wins. Looking through your bills, looking through your budget and seeing where there's maybe a small tweak that is available. That on one end builds up your confidence, on another end brings a little bit more of reinvention competence. And finally, number 3, start networking like you've never networked before. All of us have experienced extreme year of hardship, and there are more of us willing to help others. So if they know you're looking for an opportunity, even if it's just a side hustle for a short period of time, more people are willing to help you out. So showing up at places virtually, showing up at all kind of networking places, showing up at online networking places like Clubhouse, all of those things make a difference right now. So I would start with those 3 things. Deal with your fear, find at least one low-hanging fruit, and get very serious about networking.
On your website, you have 2 exercises that will help people make the best choice for themselves, their business, or their clients. Can you go over those 2 exercises?
Oh, we have plenty of exercises. So I wonder which ones have you picked that you thought
I was seeing you were offering on the homepage, you were offering the business model reinvention cards.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So now we're moving to business model and business reinvention. So going away a little bit from the personal reinvention to what happens if you're a small business owner. Let's say you have a restaurant, or you have a training company, or a dog walking company. What can you do? One of the things you can do is to imagine a different business model, which is a combination of choices that together earn money in a slightly different way. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we do a lot of this for publishing business as a good example. So let's say you have a small traditional publishing business and you are seeing a huge decline in sales. What can you do? Well, with business model, with the cards that we offer, and these are a free set of business model cards, the one thing you can do is you can think, okay, can I not publish physical books? Can I go virtual? Or can I think about some sort of book exchange or book packaging? Or can I go with pay what you want, the model? There's this very funky model that is used, especially in arts and theater, that you can pay as little as $1 per seat, but surprisingly, most people pay more than the sellers are planning to earn. So the business model cards is a very simple tool to reshuffle information and come up with a different way to offer the same service in a new package. We have other solutions as well. So, for example, we have developed a collection of 101 free reinvention tools. And there you can find everything from free ways to edit your videos and photos so that you can improve your marketing, different way to develop your business plan, different ways to sell or offer and package and price your products. And every single tool on that list is absolutely free, or it has a significantly enhanced free trial, so that you don't need to invest any money. You can do everything at this point with no cost to you.
Well, you gave the example of movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, hotels, airlines, cruises. I think airlines, I'm not too worried about them. They struggled for a few months, but it looks like they've rebounded. But cruise lines, cruises, nothing's been happening there. Hotels, what would be your case study or your applications to those industries?
Well, in the past, what we do with every industry, we diversify because of the volatility going up. And we have seen absolutely no evidence that the world will become less volatile in the future. So it's not just a temporary glitch that we're going through COVID-19. After COVID-19, we're seeing at least 10 other disruptions lining up. So there is absolutely no moment where there will be business as usual. that context, our approach is to diversify, which means that when one of your businesses goes down, another one most likely will not do it at the same time, and you are able to support financially one side of your business. I'll give you an example. We worked with a massive mining and metals company, almost 100,000 employees. And this is a very cash heavy company because you need to invest very heavy in the construction of mines, in the smelters, in equipment, in all kind of other things, mining pits, and on and on and on. And we wanted to find a diversification option that allows you to offset that heavy cash with something that is not as heavy on the fixed cost. And we chose a digital portfolio. So this company now has a massive new venture fund where they invest in digital services and provide digital solutions. So when the mining prices, the commodity prices on metals go down, they have an additional source of income from a different source that runs on a completely different cycle and creates an opportunity to support your business. So I would, at this point, proactively look for a way to diversify. And of course, in the moment, that is very painful. The cash is not there. At the same time, the amount of available investment cash right now is still very, very high. We've never seen this many investors looking for an opportunity to invest in the history of humankind. So if you have a good diversification plan, most likely you will find a way to finance it, even right now.
Now, we talked a little bit about businesses that are having to reinvent because of COVID-related things in the pandemic. What were some of the industries you saw as really needing to reinvent themselves before we had the crisis that people may have kind of put to the side because of, all the chaos that was created by the pandemic?
Well, there are plenty of industries that were very ripe for reinvention, and most of them, of course, are quite oblivious to that. So we do research every 2 years. We study and do a massive global reinvention survey with thousands of leaders participating from all over the world. And one of the questions we ask is to rate the need for reinvention in your industry. And most of the time, the industries that need most reinvention are the ones who say they need it least. We call it Titanic syndrome, where the companies are killing themselves by their own inability to notice a potential iceberg right in front of them. So companies with Titanic syndrome right now, before COVID-19, education industry has been ripe for reinvention for a very long time, and it would refuse to do so consistently. How many of us are disenchanted with colleges and college education because the bridge between the investment you make into college education and the actual return on that investment, that the just value for money is not there. And right now, we indeed see massive amount of colleges, not only in the US, but worldwide, dying off because they didn't reinvent on time, and COVID was the final nail in the coffin. Some of the elements of the traditional entertainment business, so again, movie theaters, traditional theaters, art galleries, and so on, have been ripe for reinvention for a very, very long time, and they have refused to do so. We see a lot of things happening also in manufacturing, having much more flexibility, building modular plants where modular design allows you to switch from one product to another much faster. Many companies have not reinvented on time and therefore lost business and had to go out of business. So there is a number of industries that have been ripe before COVID-19, and COVID became an accelerator for many of them. And unfortunately, many of them, of course, will not survive.
Well, yeah, let's put the pandemic aside. You said that you guys were seeing disruptions anyway, and there will continue to be, I think you said, over 10 different disruptions that you identified. Can you, I guess from a futuristic perspective, can you tell us what disruptions we can expect now that the pandemic is over, though the worst of the pandemic is over, and we move forward in this new decade?
Oh, I will highlight only a few. I do suggest all of the listeners go to the There's a number of places to look, but one that I suggest is the World Economic Forum puts out their annual risk analysis and highlights 30 most important risks, not just 10, but 30 most important risks. And they've been highlighting pandemics for years and years before the pandemic happened. So whenever somebody tells me that it was completely unexpected, I have to chuckle, because all scientists have been screaming about upcoming pandemics nonstop for not just years, but decades now. So I will highlight just a few. Number one is on the surface, automation. We are seeing massive automation taking out whole industries. You probably experience it in your lifetime. For example, look at the accounting, how much automation is happening because of software that is like TurboTax, that is replacing manual accounting and bookkeeping. A lot of legal services are being automated because a lot of it is not requiring significant new input. It's algorithmic in nature, and anything that is algorithmic can be replaced. And already in 2013, Oxford University was projecting that about 47% of all jobs in the US will disappear under automation. But good news, there will be new jobs. So the question is, are you paying attention, and are you keeping up with the trend to notice when is it time for you to start developing a new job and move into a new direction? So number one, automation. Number two, we cannot hide away from climate change. Climate change is disrupting quite a lot of different things. Number one, we're looking at weather disruptions. So things like fires that are becoming quite obvious in California, and it's very clear that Silicon Valley will not stay the way it is in current form. Quite a few companies, starting with Oracle, already started their exodus of California and so on. But unfortunately, it's not just fires. We're talking about access to food, access to water. We're talking about climbing insurance costs, because if you're living in an area that is weather sensitive, whether we're talking about increasing number of hurricanes, fires, floods, and so on, or you have production facilities in those areas, your insurance costs are going up. So you will start moving your businesses to other areas. So automation, climate change. Another big disruption that's happening is a complete shift in customer preferences. So the generational shift right now is very noticeable, that a lot of the products and services that we were considering kind of safe. I have a 17-year-old daughter. She still doesn't have any interest in having her own car. It's just not part of her life. She's not interested. She's planning to live in an urban center. Urban centers are continuing to grow by all estimates. The cities will become more powerful than states in the very near future. So things like your customers will not need your product. They won't feel any interest in your product in a relatively recent future. So the rapid change in customer demands and expectation is another disruption. And then we have more complex disruptions. For example, monetary system. There's a number of initiatives right now globally to come up with a new concept of money. That is, of course, accelerated and pressured by invention of different forms of money. Bitcoin is one of them, but not by far, not the only one. So all of that together pushes for a new concept of what money is and how monetary system will work. We have same kind of discussions on the new vision of capitalism, the new vision of democracy, and more complex issues that are a little bit further down the road. So I hope I didn't scare you with this list.
No, I've been on this show. We've talked about many of these disruptions, and none of it surprises me at all. And I think it's good to be ahead at the forefront. And I think all of these disruptions, I don't like that term. I think they're innovations. I think they're going to come here quicker than we think. That's just, people say, oh yeah, that's a long time from now. I don't need to worry about it. But you brought up your daughter, for example, who's 17, and I have one child. Adam has 4 children, and I think my child is just a toddler, but I don't think it's going to be necessary for him to drive by the time he turns 15, because that's just going to be a thing of the past. Driving is going to be a thing, at least a person manually driving. By that point, 14 years from now, absolutely, I think will be a thing of the past. And I think innovation is good. And if the pandemic had to accelerate a lot of this stuff, so be it. That's how business cycles work. We have, I don't want to say disruptions, but we have recessions, we have pullbacks like this every 10 years or so. It just happens throughout history. Every 10 years, there's something, and we end up as a society, as a global economy, end up better off than we were before.
I agree, absolutely. And looking at the data, what we're talking about with reinvention, it's really not about a one-time project. So there's this difference that our community keeps highlighting. Reinvention 1.0 is where you do one-time project and you're done and you move on and you have a status quo. Reinvention 2.0 is a system that allows you to reinvent proactively ahead of the game, choosing different forms, whether it's a really radical innovation or very small continuous improvement project. It depends on the needs of your company, your industry, your reality. But having a system that allows you to do it ahead of the game, take a shower when you need it, choose the right scale and intensity and scope of a reinvention when you need it. That's the essence of what reinvention is. It's a system that allows you to ride the waves of change rather than get crushed by them. And this is the new era in which we will have to renew ourselves more than ever before.
So it seems that you, first off, where are you based? Are you in the United States?
Yeah, we live in the United States, in Ohio, Columbus.
Where in Ohio?
Columbus.
Okay. And how did you get into becoming a reinvention guru? Did you start out at a big investment? It sounds like you have some experience in either investment banking or private equity. Is that how you...
I laugh only because every time somebody says reinvention guru, you have to chuckle. It's really, media is lovely. I admire and appreciate all these nicknames that media gives you. Of course, I don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, the guru is here. I'm finally awakened. This does not happen. So how I started? I was born in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. And that was one of the reasons why I chose as an essence of my doctorate dissertation to study large system survival, because I knew and I saw firsthand what happens when your company disappears, but also what happens when your country disappears, when you don't have currency for 3 years. Kazakhstan didn't develop its own national currency until 1993.
Oh, you're from Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it took us a while. And because of that, I came to US on exchange program, and my doctorate was about large system survival. But since you study large system survival, one of the most lucrative large system is a large corporation. So I started getting a lot of requests for consulting projects as a professor of strategy and sustainability. And because I love business, I love the idea of value creation, I admire the elements of value creation, I became this person at the intersection of money, people, trends, politics, because that's what reinvention is. It's very integrative type of quest for a new version of ourselves. So I end up working with massive corporations at this integrative place. And that's why I like finance experience. I like every project we ever did with finance, and we have massive number of customers also in banking sector, which makes me more attuned maybe to the finance language than many people in my field. But it's been an interesting drive. So every kind of project you can imagine, from publicly known stories, we were engaged in taking a company off London Stock Exchange, which apparently is much harder than taking it on the market, much harder than IPO. We were engaged in helping a dying bank in Austria to come back and deconstruct and reconstruct it. And then we have, of course, a lot of private and sometimes very hard reinvention projects. The most tragic one was when a company calls you up and says, our CEO just killed himself. We don't know what to do next. So all kind of reinvention projects you can imagine.
How often does that happen?
Thankfully, not as often as you might imagine, but in the mid-sector, unfortunately, it happens quite consistently, which makes me really nervous. And again, the work we're doing on the education front is part of that unless we give our kids and also our adults reinvention and resilience skills, I'm afraid we're going to start losing people, because the complexity of the volatile, uncertain environment in which we live, unfortunately, most of our people are not prepared for that. We don't get that in schools. We're not preparing our kids for that, and we should start upping our game and giving our kids the reinvention skills. I was so happy when the historian Harari, the author of Sapiens, he wrote a wonderful article for Wired where the first sentence was, "Forget programming, you must teach your kids reinvention." And I'm like, yes, somebody's saying it too. So I truly think it's time for us to up our game there.
Well, I think part of the problem is people themselves, educators, teachers, coaches, they don't know reinvention. They don't know what that means. They don't know how to do it. And personally, I think I've reinvented myself several times, reinvented my projects, my businesses, my lifestyles through various phases of life. You know, high school, college, post-college, single life, married life, parenting life. It's a constant reinvention. And to me, this is just me, spirituality, not necessarily religion, but spirituality, and reading really good philosophical books that tell you how to reinvent, how to become more disciplined, how to adapt and compromise. To me, those are what have helped me reinvent and helped me in business as well.
I love that. And I think that's very true about you and Adam in general. The whole premise of work from home is the idea that you create portfolio for yourself, where you are not just a victim of a trend or somebody else's decision, whether it's a political decision, economic decision, or any other decision. That trend should not choose for you. You should still have ability to stay afloat. So I love the premise of your show, because it is about creating a portfolio of choices and portfolio of income generating activities that allow you to navigate the storms more effectively.
Yeah, and your company also has gotten involved in some real estate projects, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience in real estate and what you've worked on?
I myself don't do much. This is what my husband spearheads. We are 50-50 partners since 2007, running our business. So I try to stay away as much, but it is a constant debate. So I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, we had this big, very confrontational discussion at our team level that we don't have enough commercial real estate in our portfolio. And just sometimes you have this gut feeling. And yes, by the numbers, it feels like we should have a bit more so that portfolio is more diversified. But your gut is just like, no. And then COVID-19 happened. And we were driving through Columbus, of course, completely emptied out. And still to this day, it's a question mark for me how much of the occupancy will come back in the commercial sector after COVID-19. And we were like, thanks God we didn't invest in commercial real estate heavier at that point. So yeah, it's an interesting experience to be a little bit more detached. So I'm more like a advisor board member on that side, but we try to diversify. So we have a little bit of everything.
Very good. Well, Dr. Nadya Zhexembayeva, thanks so much for joining us on the Work From Home show. The websites are chiefreinventionofficer.com. That's chiefreinventionofficer.com, as well as learn the number 2 reinvent. Learn2reinvent.com. That's learn2reinvent.com. Dr. Nadya, any final thoughts, wisdom, or websites, books, anything else you want to share with our listeners?
Well, we do have plenty of amazing resources. So if you just stop by, if you choose one between the two, learntoreinvent.com is the easiest one. You will get plenty of really amazing resources. The business model reinvention cards, Titanic syndrome test. If you want to take that, download the handbook we have and use it. That's the most interesting thing. But from the kind of philosophical point of view, my final thought is very simple. You don't have a choice. Change will keep happening to you. The only choice you have is whether you're going to fight it and waste a lot of energy on that fight, or you're going to use it. And my wish for you is that you use every change that comes your way, whether it's personal, professional, business, countrywide, any change. Use it as a wind to really fill your sails instead of using it as a hurricane that crashes you. So fighting it is impossible and quite sad. So use that change, use it as an option to set yourself free and find a new version of yourself and your business.
Completely agree. Embrace change. It's one of the most important skills that anybody can accept in life. It's accept change. Life is all about change. The only constant in life is change. I'm sure you've heard that before. Mm-hmm. So great advice. All our listeners, visit our website, workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. Email us if you have any questions, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Find us on social media, Twitter, Facebook. Get us on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify. We're everywhere when it comes to the podcasting platforms. Leave us a review. Take a screenshot of it. Send it to us at hello@workfromhomeshow.com. We'll send you something free of charge. And until next week, keep on working from home.